that was for 24. Okay. Cool. So let me share. All righty. So first, I'll just pop over to our meeting notes, and one of the things we were talking about was about the education, and you guys were asking about. I was talking about working with Beach School to discuss coordination. And I found my notes, which were in a slightly different document, about the what's been going on. And I think Terry had actually told us about this. And there are two things that are going on. One of them is the outdoor education. So if we look at this outdoor education, and this bill just passed, so this is brand new. And it's about time outdoors, helping children thrive physically, emotionally, and academically. And part of this is access to outdoors, equitable access, learn, play, grow, outdoor educational opportunities should be available. And they specifically mention rural. So they are, that does make us, part of this emphasis. So I'll assume that starting, and I'm guessing it's going to be in September, the students will actually have some specific outdoor education kind of curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
So it would seem like if we could, hook onto that, that would be good. And the other one was a specific to marine, and I believe this was going to be older. I think this might have been part of the science curriculum, includes marine, and I forget exactly how they phrased it. It's part of the science, though. So that's why I realized that might not be the beach school, but I wasn't sure someone over at the high school or middle school, maybe, to find out if that was a possible avenue for us to maybe have those students come over. So I think the idea of us pursuing this is a good idea. I think the idea of having a day out on the boat, we were talking about maybe something like that. And maybe contact then Ferndale School District about the middle school and upper.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was marine education, whatever that. So everyone in all of the water-based communities in Washington were encouraged to have understanding about the water and its how the water affects us and what part it plays in the environment and etc. Okay, so that was one thing I wanted to get back to you guys on, and then the other one was Nick had talked about going to the meeting about the disaster.
Mm-hmm.
And so I followed up on that. And so this is now this will be for this week. So here is. So yes, it's Extension Disaster Emergency Network. It's called EDEN. And it is cooperative extension. It is multi-state. And I did find, now this was for this last year, so the money will have already been spent. However, they did have some grants about advancing disaster education initiatives in rural America. They're small grants, so this is not going to pay for a dock. This is more, to me, it's more about if we had some more formalized disaster preparation planning on the island. I was guessing it's more about how would the dock be an asset and how might it be used. So, but part of part of this whole, as I was looking through here and I was trying to figure out like how would this work, apparently you would need to be hooked up with someone from the university who was doing this, who, in other words, someone who had an Eden project, because it very specifically says that whoever is the principal person on this research, it's a research project, that they need to have been trained in this. So here it says at least one team member must be an Eden delegate. So what that says to me is we'd have to find that someone at local college had already done this, and that's what I can't quite figure out. I went and looked at some of the extension programs at the like Western, I think WWU, but disaster preparedness is not on their list. So they offer a variety of the potential extension programs, but they're about agriculture and such, and none of them is specifically about this program right now. So, having said that, though, I did find a project that they had worked with over at Cherry Point or Sandy Point, which was about community resilience. And community resilience is about, in the planning process, that you take both disaster response and maybe even more importantly, disaster recovery into account as you are planning.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just saying, well, we're going to have these, you know, and admittedly, it's probably communities a bit larger than ours. The ones I saw were cities, small cities, 2,000 people, but still they were cities. And so instead of just saying, well, this is going to be our, our plan for building, business here, was that, okay, and how will those businesses, how do you ensure from the beginning that maybe those businesses need to have a disaster preparedness plan? Maybe they need to be able to say, okay, part of you getting your license to operate is sitting down with the other stakeholders and saying, what do you bring to the party, and how, if there's a disaster here, how will we be able to turn to you and rely on you? So in other words, it was saying everyone in the community should have a sense of, well, what would my part be?
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that was really interesting. I thought, community resilience. And so I'll see if that's something that will be discussed in the disaster preparedness, if that's, part of what is kind of the new generation of disaster preparedness. Nick, I don't know if you remember if they said anything specifically about that in the meetings you went to.
No, not that I recall. Eden was talked about, but yeah, going down to this resilience, community resilience, that's neat.
Yeah, because it's kind of next level in that
Yeah.
there's just I think that you have to make it more real than a tsunami might happen.
Sure.
There's like so I think that to me something like resilience, how do we look around the island and say that we're in a reasonable position to, especially to recover from an event like that? How would we, and part of the question then is, well, going into it, what have you got and how much you use that? So,
and that could be, and that, I think that is a really good thing, because like if the ferry dock were taken out by something, like what do we have as a community? And we do have quite a few small boats that are kept on trailers on the island that are not, and as long as there's some means of launching it, that's a good thing. So we could have access to the mainland, but having something that could take out a ferry dock could take out a small boat dock too.
True. See, that's what I was trying to think of. What kinds of events. They do have they give you like different scenarios. They worked on some over at Cherry Point. One of them was uh, flooding. They might have done fire. I forget. They had like
Mhm.
scenarios, but the where they've actually gotten the farthest, and it was a woman's master's thesis in this area, basically. And now it says urban planning, and again, we're not exactly urban, but it's still community planning. Think of it that way.
It's still a community's a community. It's just,
Exactly.
smaller.
Yeah. No, we don't have a local government per se, but that we're still a bunch of
Mhm.
people here on this island who would have to think about something, and it'd be better to think about it before it happened, and have
Mhm.
some ideas of, well, it's kind of the same to me. It's the same thing as if you have an evacuation plan, and it's all about who needs what and where are they, and who can we corral and who's ready to respond. It's the same similar kind of thing,
Yeah.
but you're just trying to maybe make it a little broader base so that people see that it's not just planning that would help in that disaster event, but it's planning that would help in an urgent response. So the
Right.
ferry is out, people still need to get off the island.
Right.
So I think that's kind of the logic behind it that I like, is that I think it makes it more real to people to
Mhm.
say the likelihood of something happening on a small
Mhm.
scale or a larger scale, there's a decent likelihood of something happening. And you don't have to have 14 different committees planning 14 different things. This is like sort of one
Mhm.
holistic, and basically disaster preparedness comes through the fire department. But if we think about, well, how would we interact most successfully, and how can we pool our resources to sort of have a plan that does sound more, I guess, sort of an ongoing plan, not just a
Right.
one-off. Well, there's your dock. Okay, bye.
Right.
Yeah, no,
Um,
and I don't think a dock is that's not the only solution out there. And I don't know, I still sometimes think that, I think that I am totally committed to the dock, but I
But
sometimes think it would be good and it might be more realistic for Lummi Island to purchase a boat that would be landing craft capable,
yeah,
could land anywhere,
uh-huh.
and have that, I think doing a giant GoFundMe drive, or applying for grants and Nick, you're probably going to laugh at me, but that stupid landing craft that was for sale in Bellingham, that's kind of overkill, but it could possibly have been a solution kind of a thing, and that was less than
Yeah,
$300,000.
and
And
it doesn't take 20 years. I mean, I still think the dock is.
yeah, and wouldn't have to take 20 years, but it could address the issue of getting people. It's like overkill for going back and forth between Gooseberry Point um, and and Lummi Island, but it would not be overkill having to transport somebody into uh, Bellingham.
Yeah, and
You
especially
know,
given how many
if it
days.
was an urgent response thing, and it was like, but and I don't know, I don't, and I don't know like where it becomes I think the fire department's thing on it would be, if it's life or death, that's where the fire department would come in. And if it's life or death, the helicopter would come in. That's kind of what I think would be, but I don't know. I think it would be good for us as an island to have some sort of a thing that we could get to people
Plan.
to Bellingham. It wouldn't be like that boat was an open boat, but if you could put like a house on it where you could carry passengers, maybe 15 passengers at a time, it's not the cheapest way to get people, but it could get people back and forth for jobs. Like there's a lot of people that are essential service workers, there are teachers, there's lots of nurses, technicians, there's just lots of people that when that ferry's dead, it really is not a good scene.
But it's not just that. How many days would it have done you absolutely no good to get over to Gooseberry Point because of the flooding?
Yeah,
You couldn't have gotten to Bellingham.
yeah.
That's where our resiliency needs to come into play.
That's where going into Bellingham
Right.
does make sense.
Yeah.
I
having
mean,
a-
if you can
an
only
alternative.
take, if you can only take 15 or 20 people at a time, it's a lot better to be able to get in there.
Yeah. How long do you think it would take to get, I was curious as to, just guessing, if you have any idea how long it would take to get into Bellingham.
From here, it takes about 35 minutes in my little dinghy.
Okay, that's
Mhm.
faster than I realized.
Yeah,
Quicker
it's,
with a better
yeah,
boat.
but what kind of an outboard do you have on it?
10 horsepower.
Okay, Yeah.
I mean, really just putting along,
yeah, so you're probably going about 10 to 12 knots.
maybe. Yeah, maybe
Mhm.
10. Yeah, I think that's what I charted it out at.
Mhm.
But that's like I said, that's an 11-foot dinghy, calm weather too.
Mhm.
And it's a straight shot for me. I don't have
Yeah.
to,
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't have to very, very much. I just kind of point straight to Bellingham and go for it. from
Yeah,
here.
yeah. No, you just shoot a little round Point Francis buoy and you're there
Yeah.
in the bay and go for it. And but
Mhm.
Yeah, I do like the idea of maybe a water taxi service that's privately owned here on Lemmy
Mhm.
Island.
mhm.
And a landing craft would be ideal for that here. Though I think best case scenario, have both. have a
Mhm.
easy access dock and
Mhm.
a water taxi or a landing craft, and that way private boats in an emergency situation can access the dock, load goods or people,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and we can get more people off the island at once, or goods to and from.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, as far as the resilient community, I think that's an interesting thing for us to kind of explore in like disaster preparedness and kind of contingency planning. It's never, you can't just focus in on the what if the tsunami hits, the
The
what
one,
if
one
the
giant.
cascade
Yeah.
falls.
No,
There's
because simple
so
things
much.
can happen.
Yeah, exactly. And it's those simple things that will really hurt the community, like
Yeah.
more clean drinking water. The power's been
Mhm.
out because something happened over on the other side and we don't have power for a month. And so no well pumps can pump anymore. No water treatment systems work anymore. So how can our plan for a dock or a solution contribute to, sustaining the island population through extended period of
Mhm.
loss of water, loss of food, medications,
Mhm.
Mhm.
how we could cache a big supply here on the island, but that's not always the best way to do it.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, just having a good resource available for us to expand out into our surroundings to get our resources that we need or provide resources to others that are in need of help. And I think the dock or a landing craft are highly useful in those scenarios. With the landing craft, the only thing that I would be worried about is it can't just sit there not being used. We need to have a second use
Purpose for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just gonna, I don't know, collect rat poop and graffiti.
Exactly,
Um,
exactly.
Oh yeah, interesting idea, interesting thought.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it helps sort of frame the discussion for us to expand maybe and get some input from the community, and this also from the businesses,
Oh, yeah,
because I think they are probably more likely to have in their business plans some other kinds of scenarios
yeah,
that maybe could be addressed through whatever other creative projects
yeah,
we can think of related still to still about access,
right.
not just getting on and off the island, but getting to a place that once you get there, you continue on to where you want to go, and you're not just like, well, here we are at Gooseberry Point, and we have nowhere to go.
Yeah, right. I pulled up the registered businesses for Lummi
Oh
Island,
yeah,
and there's 340 of us. Holy cow. But not
Wow.
every single one of them is active. I started clicking through each and every one of them, and yeah, a few of them are closed or no longer active in this list, but it gives me something to at least compare with what we've got in the phone book, and that way we can uh, consult with actual registered tax-paying businesses on the island.
yeah. So this, and where did you find that list?
Uh, Department of Revenue.
hmm
Oh, okay. Wow, 304. That's amazing. Okay.
340.
40. That is
Yeah.
astonishing.
340.
Okay.
And that's like historical, like how, or is that currently licensed?
So I think it is historical.
hmm
Anybody that's had a registered business that was active at one time, I think
hmm
was populated into this list. As far as I know, the majority of them are still active, but some of them are active. But I know David Young isn't on the island right now, but he's in this
hmm
list,
hmm
and says that he's on the island. But so there's things like that that are gonna, we'll have to kind of
Call.
figure out as we come up to them. Um, yeah, it's interesting to see how much there is here or has been here. But I've
And
seen more active than not.
okay. And do they have a category? I forget what it's called. There's a code, right? A business code. Do they have a category that
I
you can group by?
um I didn't find that. No. I think they're well, maybe. Let me see if I can pull it back up here. It was, I just did a very generic search
Uh-huh.
of Lummi Island, but you can search by business name, UBI, license number, and then of course address.
Mm-hmm.
hmm
So we can go by like trade names and kind of filter it a little bit.
I see. Mm-hmm.
I'll have to see what if there's something with the UBI numbers. I think
Right. They
those
give a.
might actually pertain to what type of work you're doing.
Oh, it could be that that maps to the code. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I found we've been having that discussion about the population of the island and such, and I did find um, a site that was, where did I find this site? Jumped off from somewhere. That showed the population growth over each decade from a big population between 2000 and now, population increase of 21%. But if you look at the 2000 to 2010, it's like 150-ish people, which would be a lot. You went from 812 to 964 in a
Mhm.
decade. But next decade, 2010 to 2020, this says the increase was like 20 people.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Huh. So,
I could see that.
I was one of those 20 people.
I think it's probably most down to you, Nick. I think that
Yep.
you. So, who are your cohorts? I mean, do you know everyone else who moved to the island in the same 10 years that you did?
I know quite a few of them, actually. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, probably.
Hmm.
So,
But that was based on census, right?
it is, but they do some kind of assumption that not everybody responded.
Yeah.
And so
But
they have a little bit of a fill in the gap kind of a thing. Um, Honestly, I can't believe that I took this because I said to myself, I'll remember exactly where I got this, but I was actually looking for something else and came across it. But I think they do typically have a plus or minus, a fudge factor. I think the other reason I was a little bit surprised is that this did confirm that the number of young people here is just more than I realized. Um, it's still, there's still far more people over 65, and that was still like 22% or something of the total population. But our median age is still 50, 50, 50. This says 57. That was for 2020. But there were still more young people than I had realized. So,
yeah, well, I think between like 2000 to 2010, that was like when I moved to the island, was closer to 2000. And I think there were a lot of things that were driving people off the island. They had like a $3 surcharge on the ferry that just was thrown in really fast.
yes. That was, yeah.
That would have been about 2000. I'm thinking 2007 or 8. Maybe even 6. I don't remember how long ago that was, but there was just a bunch of things that just sort of happened right as they that was causing a lot of people to leave the island that were younger, that were commuters.
Yeah, one
But-
thing it does not reflect, you're right, what this does not reflect is whether that meant that everybody who was
And
here.
a lot of
stayed
people
here.
died, and a lot of people have died in the last, especially in this last round of years,
Yeah.
2010 to 2020. We've had a lot of people that were the really old people that were here
Hmm.
there's been a lot of people that have passed away.
Yeah, and so what
That
you
always happens.
yeah, but what you can't tell is how many people died, stayed here and died. How many people
Mhm.
actually left left, and then how many
Mhm.
people came in. Because it
Mhm.
could be, yes, that you had a large number of people who left, and that
Mhm.
the difference, the people who are here who add up to these numbers, how many of those are
Mhm.
actually new people versus
Yes, that's why I
replacement.
was saying if it's census based, then
You
that's
can't tell.
gonna account for the goes intos and the goes outas.
Uh, well, yeah, but you still can't, of those 150 people, I still can't tell. Um, does that mean 812 people stayed here and then 150 people came?
No, it means there's 150 more than there was when there were
Right.
only 850 people.
But did we have 100 people who left? And then the
Hmm.
first 100 people came back to replace them. And then
Yeah, that's
150
what you
people.
don't know.
That's what you.
Yeah,
So that's why the statistics only go so far.
yeah. And
And I don't know.
I see more houses on the island. There's more houses on the island now than there were in 2023.
Yeah, now that number, we do have, you're right,
Hmm.
they do have number of houses. You can look at that as
Hmm.
a reflection, but, um, and I think that LifeAct had data, the LifeAct report from 2018, the one about the new ferry.
Hmm.
That's why I was suggesting we look at that because they are
Hmm.
also the ones that had a bunch of business information, I think, Nick. I think that survey had business information too. So that's why I was thinking we'd go back and look at some of those and um, try to make use of the data. Um, that people are interesting to compare the data people collected then versus now, or to sort of not reinvent the wheel. If that, I think we should probably see if we can ask the same questions they asked in order for us to give a decade over decade
Hmm.
comparison. Because they asked how many people commuted. What they asked was how many days a week do you use the ferry? And so,
Yeah, and yeah, I know for our household, it really changed. When both Jim and I retired, we
mhm,
use it a
mhm,
whole lot less than we used to because
mhm,
we were both regularly commuting. When I was substitute teaching, I was going into town a lot. And
mhm, mhm. Yeah. Okay, you kids. Let's see. Anything? Well, I think that was most of our follow up to our discussion. We're waiting to hear back on some things, and so we can either go on to FAQs or Nick. Is there anything else where you want to talk about? Thinking about the business, reaching out to the business community.
Nothing to report right now. I'm gonna start kind of poking some of the bears and seeing what kind of input they might have, just with some friends that I have on the island that have businesses, and kind of get my feel for what questions should be asked and
Mm-hmm.
how to approach.
Yeah, because I mean, informally, it would be good to find out. You feel like these are folks who will continue to run a business here as long as they possibly can, and how many of them are feeling like, all things considered, last year, especially with ferry outages and flooding and all these things, are the people having second thoughts about whether this is the best idea, and also what they think the economic health of the island is. Just
Mhm.
how it'd be interesting to find out how many of them actually make a living, literally just doing business on the island, and is that percentage gone up or gone down for them? Kind of give us a sense of sort of that barometer of business health.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Well, do you guys want to talk through? Let's see how we're doing on our FAQs here. Our giant list.
Mm-hmm.
You can still see my screen. Am I still sharing?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let's see how we're doing here. Oh, got through the mooring ball discussion. That was certainly interesting. Overnight dock, parking access. One of the questions that's come up is, will there be public restrooms or at least a portable toilet nearby? Is it too much to think that people will use the bathrooms at the ferry dock? Is that what people think? Or if you're just down on the deck crabbing, you don't want to come up off the deck, walk all the way over to the ferry dock?
Yeah,
That's a big ask at that site.
that really is. I don't know if that's a feasibility. I mean, porta potties, yeah, but that's
I
sort of
can't.
unsightly.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't think people would be real thrilled about having a outhouse right in front of their bedroom or their living
in
room
front
or
of the
by their
Beach Store
driveway.
Cafe,
Yeah,
people are trying to dine outside and
Oh,
sun's hitting that. That would not be very good.
where
But
would
I don't
they
think there's any possibility of putting in a septic system there without
no,
having a pump and sending it over to the other side of the road and purchasing some land for that. That's
mm-mm,
out of
no.
our scope.
Yep. Yeah, I think they do plan in the ferry terminal improvement process would be, I guess those bathrooms are not ADA compliant.
Mhm.
So they're planning to replace those bathrooms. Now, I actually don't know why there is a portable toilet there.
Because it is ADA compliant.
Yeah.
Oh, that didn't occur to me. Oh, duh. Okay, thank you. So there won't be one once the bathrooms are replaced. I didn't understand why there was one. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So I mean, at this point, I'm just like, well, I mean, that might be nice, but
No,
it's hard to imagine, right?
no, that site is not going to have any upland support. It just,
Mhm.
that's what that site is. That's the,
Yeah. And
it isn't, that's an ongoing issue with that site.
yeah. 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 Okay. Proposed site. Okay, let's see. We've gone through some of these fors, some of these against, assuming that it's not rerouted.
There, and then there is no place uplands for parking. There is no place uplands.
Well, there's no, yeah, it's legitimate parking other than, I'm gonna say no parking exists now.
No parking, just a short-term load space is only available.
Yeah, so no public land is available for parking right at the site. There might be parking available nearby on county land. Assuming we could get them to agree to that wooded piece. That's it's not actually Public Works, it's right? One of them is Public Works and one of them is another county agency. So I don't know if we want to put anything about interaction with ferry traffic. I mean, interaction with ferry traffic would be a possibility. I mean, but no matter where you were, it'd be a possibility.
Yeah, it would. I think that, well, interaction with ferry traffic, I think it's less at that site than it would be if you had it parked right next to the ferry dock.
That's a good point. As a pro, you would say is a usual reasonable separation between
Mhm.
Island Ferry dock.
And public dock.
I would just say from the, yeah.
And we'd also talked in the past about if you were going to shoot right across over to Gooseberry from there, you wouldn't have to cross the ferry traffic lane.
Right.
If you're going anywhere else,
Yeah,
like heading down to Bellingham or Scenic Estates, you have to
Yeah.
negotiate the traffic lane, but
So I think we'll leave it at reasonable, because I mean, we certainly have seen, there's some other public docks and other islands that are literally pretty much on the ferry dock.
yep, no, they are.
Let's see. Oh, we've gotten through a whole lot more of these than I had remembered. Oh, good. Other sites were considered. Nobody's thought of any more sites since we last went through this, have you?
The only place I really, I keep thinking about is, I think that it sounds like it can't happen, but it's still, I still think if it could be right next to the ferry dock on the north side in that cove, like if they could just build like a ramp going down and then put in some sort of an up-down ferry dock like we're talking about. That I think would take away so much of the extra cost of having to do all of the environmental studies again, because that area has already been approved for, the use as a dock area. But yeah,
Where would you bring in? Where would you hook up on land? I mean, you got the road coming. The ferry terminal has a currently paved. So how would you?
And you would have to come either build something off. I'm still thinking of just I guess if a dock could be put out over that big riprap area, just like a pier that would come out over the riprap area that was just a pedestrian pier.
So, well, the problem I think is that whole the whole bank being so unstable. Isn't that right, Nick?
No,
that's up the road a little bit further. Up
That's
north.
up the road further. I'm talking about right next to the
Oh, I
dock.
wasn't sure where because the pictures of the study show it's
Yeah.
starting right at the ferry, park, ferry pavement and going north from there. So I thought that whole bank was somehow a
Hmm.
sensitive area or couldn't.
Yeah,
Huh.
but the riprap comes down and around into that cove a ways, because the that becomes part of the foundation, I guess, for the area that the ramp is built. And I don't know, I
Do you think that the Public Works would just have a strong resistance to this?
uh, I I want to talk to Public Works as to like what they're going to do for when they say they're going to, like, they just got 5.3 million to start the dock improvement upgrades.
Okay, but is there a
And
design plan for that?
I want to see that plan, and I want to see that they're dealing with the urgent access needs
Right.
more urgently than not.
I've wondered, so you don't know of I mean, it would be on the Life Fact site if there was a,
They,
right?
I don't think they've shown anything, but they have a little drawing there, just like they have a picture of the ferry. But they haven't. It's I haven't seen any true conceptual thing of that.
Okay.
But at the LIFAC meeting this month, they talked about that 5.3 million was going to be devoted to only the dock upgrades and covering those things. Did you watch that meeting, Nick?
No,
You
I
haven't
did
heard
not.
it?
I meant to go back and replay it. No. So the so I have here, near the ferry terminal, but there's riprap there. But you're talking about near the ferry terminal to take advantage of the.
Yeah, well, what you have there is you have like an artificially created point, like that's a big flat lot that
Yeah.
has riprap coming up the armament to protect the bank and to protect the structure and to provide structure. It was
Yeah.
like that's filled with something somewhere. I'm not a construction person, but it would be a shorter distance to get out to deep water from a parking lot.
You're right.
And just by building like a smaller extension to the parking lot, and then with one of those giant ramps that they already have, they could build something that was an extension of that, and then put a float in a float that was mounted to that structure that you could
How far out?
lift up and down out of the water, like our picture thing.
So if you look at and I'll just pull up the picture because that helps to see.
Mm-hmm.
Could we get far enough out to not? I mean, I'm assuming that for the ferry emergency procedures, did they assume that you could miss the terminal entirely and keep going north and not hit anything until you could, maneuver and get back into the terminal? So how would this, I'm just trying to envision this to see where would it be in comparison to the existing. So let me just get so here we go. So
Yeah, put that on.
hang on a second. Here we go. Slide. There we go. Okay.
Okay, blow that up.
Wrong one. I was meant to do from beginning. Here we go. Okay. Okay, Lane's flying through. Sorry for the people who are watching this and now going blind. That was the old dock. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So here is the current ferry terminal.
Right. Okay. So move your cursor right. Okay. Yeah. Move it. No, towards the dock. Come to the left. Come down. Keep going left. Keep going left. Right about there. Okay, kind of where the parking spaces end and the dumpsters are.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay, if you go out there, you've already, okay, and you kind of are looking at the old dock. If you go out
actually,
out to
that's
that,
what he said here. This is actually a little better picture because this is what I was trying to figure out. So if we are, so you're talking about coming out. Let's see, where's the dumpsters are here.
right about there. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you built out at a angle to your kind of about a 45, let's see, 90 degrees with another 45 down.
Mm-hmm.
Go from where the dumpster is.
Here's the dumpster. Okay,
and I wish I could move your cursor on that picture. Kind of, you can see where the riprap is, and you can see where you get to deep water pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the color of the water.
Okay, so which way?
Towards the ferry dock. And right in there, you're starting to get to some pretty deep water. And so you could have your pier end right about there. No, back further. If you just built an extension out
so
from
here and here.
No, even further back. Okay. It could just follow your web line. If the pier ended right about there,
okay,
then you have a ramp going down, a much shorter ramp going down into deeper water. You could bring a boat in right along there.
Oh,
at just about any tide.
Let's see. And so this is deep enough.
Just looking at the picture, it looks like it would be.
Huh.
You get a lot of wake turbulence with the ferry coming in there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of buffeting.
So if this were
a lot of that does get broken up by the dolphins, though.
Yeah.
On the U things.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is something that would not be good.
Well, I hate to say, I also have a feeling this is going to fall in the transportation people are going to be talking about, TSA, Homeland Security, as to whether it's too. You're not allowed to. Can you climb on these rocks? I mean, you guys did because there was emergency access, but are you allowed to hang around on those rocks?
I haven't ever seen a no trespassing sign.
Interesting. I've never looked. I've just thought, oh, I wouldn't want to do that. So, huh.
Yeah, I don't think, I think
It's
if you
not-
go and break your leg down there, then you shouldn't be there. But
Yeah,
Good point. But that is kind of an interesting. I have to admit, I had not realized. I had thought that you'd have to go deeper, and so what I was talking about is if you have somehow you miss whatever happens, some terrible thing happens, and you miss here, and you're now the ferry is going across here, but you're quite a ways back. Hmm.
I think the one of the first things that Chris had mentioned with his early investigations
Yeah.
was that anything within the envelope of the existing ferry dock
Yeah. Off
is
limits.
already being off limits.
Exactly. So I guess the question is, we would want to have that confirmed. We want to tell people that we did address it. And we also would like to find out, is this exactly where they're planning to put the urgent emergency access medical ramp?
Right.
hmm
When you did your exercises, Nick, when you were there carrying on the ladder, were you north or south of the area?
We did our exercises at Scenic States.
Oh, right. Okay.
Then when they did the patient transfer, it was, oh, well, Mary knows. It was right around there.
So when you guys left
North
the
a little bit.
island, you left from the south side?
when we did,
Yeah.
Jim and I,
Yeah.
we were on the north side.
Oh, you were. So the pictures I couldn't tell. It looked like people were climbing up on the north side, and I thought that maybe they had left.
We
from
were
the
going
south
down,
side.
we were going down the south side, the north side too.
Oh, okay.
No, it was just right, we're climbing up towards the dumpster.
Yeah, it was right there.
Okay.
Yeah, and where Chris was pulled up, because
Yes.
it was a really low tide. And so he was pulled up with the picture that you have. Okay, walk your guy down right about, okay, you see where that little light bit of water is there? Zoom in there.
Mhm.
Kind of where your first you have those two segments that are stuck together.
Yeah.
That's where, move your cursor up just a little more. Right about there is where Chris was picking up people. You see that lighter color water right there?
Yeah.
That's a rocky, it's kind of there's a sandy, rocky, smallish beach there.
Mhm.
And that's where Chris was going in with his boat. It was not a really great place, but he was able to have his boat floating there
I see.
at a low tide. So what I'm saying is if a ramp could be built that could extend down just past where he was,
Mhm.
then that water is pretty deep.
Mhm. Interesting. Okay. Well, let me keep this picture.
But this is not making the public dock, and that's probably something I shouldn't be even thinking about here.
Well, the thing is, like I say, it's going to come up as a legitimate question.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfectly fair for the community to say, well, why don't you do it there? So I think we should have an answer. And if it's because the county won't let us, then it's the county won't let us.
Well, or maybe we need to just keep working on the county and show them that might be a better site for it. Although I doubt if they'll agree with it as a public dock. I think that's the thing.
Right.
I think that they might make it as an emergency access site,
Hmm.
but
Okay.
you can actually, that picture is so clear. You can actually see that, where the deep water begins
deep?
there, and it's
Yeah. And
a
that,
lot less of a trip out from shore to go from there.
Yes. Of, I would say existing,
And so,
infrastructure, whatever you want to call it. I mean, there's, see picture.
yeah, well, there's parking there, there's a restroom there.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of stuff that's there already.
Mm-hmm.
And but I'm I'm rooting for the public for the public dock. But I'm
Always looking for, I mean, you know,
yeah.
we'll have a, again, the point of any of the grants, every grant said, you
Mhm.
need to have at least 2 proposals. So we can't
Mhm.
just say we have this one. So if this is, you know, at least from anybody else's perspective, viable, and the county has objections to it, that's why it's not our plan A.
Mhm.
But if someone more powerful than we came along and said, you know, not loving it, and you're going to have to do it, or 2 different things. So, and we have 20 years. So feelings about the use of the ferry terminal might change quite a bit in 20 years. Now, do you notice we went from like the 5 to 6 year, then we sort of got to the 10-year now.
Yeah.
Chris
Yeah.
himself said 20 years. I was like, oh. So
Yeah. I personally, I don't know. I guess the island has survived for a long time without a dock there.
yeah, but we haven't been very
It hasn't been as long as we think it has been because there
Yes,
were public
exactly, 'cause
docks.
it turns out
We have
there was a
seen
dock.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was also the one by the Harmony's place, and
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
was the ones out in Lego
Oh,
Bay.
and yeah.
And
Yeah.
Harry, it sounds like you're trying to convince yourself this is still a good idea.
no, I am convinced that it's a good idea. I think I still think it's very needed. Very needed. I think it's very needed because it just, there's enough people that have responded to the survey that have said, yeah, that I don't think I'm the only person on the island that feels this way, besides all of us. And there's a lot of other people, I think, that feel the same way.
Well, and you know, another way to think about this, you know, we do have, at least at one time, we can send email to the 200 people who responded to the survey.
Mhm.
Ask if they would like to be on a mailing list to continue to get information. I don't,
Mhm.
it's okay to send one message and say, is that okay? If you don't want to be on the list, let us know, we'll take you off the list. But
Mhm.
200 people is a fair chunk of people to put their heads together and come up with, you know, some other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm Nick, maybe I am getting like, I don't know, but no, I think it's a really good idea.
I do too, but
I
honestly,
truly do. I truly do.
the feasibility of it, I can't, I don't know what to, not 100% positive that there's a high feasibility, but I think, yes, we pursue it as long as we possibly can. And in the meantime, we also talk about interim ideas. There was a question, and you know, Mary, I went back through, I found this from the public meeting, our town meeting, when you were getting the email. And they asked, could you build a public dock near the ferry terminal below the public parking, either the north or south side? It turns out this is exactly the question we just tried to address. So do we say that further discussion with the initial discussion with the county suggested that that was not viable, and that we will continue, maybe we will continue. This person, I think, did not want it farther north, is what it amounts to.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's still, it is a good question.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think it should be addressed one way or the other. And like I say, we have a final answer, then that's great. But at least it was addressed as potential. Because I think we have ran into the same problem with, what do you put it on? Let's imagine perfect world, Granger Beach was public. Would that be a viable place for the dock?
Yes, except it's archaeological site.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
There-
not that doesn't mean that it couldn't be built on it, just that's an added complication. And if any historic things were found, then that might put a wrench in the engine. But
So there was a settlement. Has a study been done, or you?
yeah, the study has been done. I think that whole beach, and then up the hill, up Nugent a little ways, almost to Lego Bay, to the turnoff on Lego Bay. I believe that's all archaeological dig area.
I see. Okay,
But
that's good to know.
that probably would not stop a project like that. And I think it's really, really shallow, way out there.
Oh, is it? I see. Because
Mhm.
I knew there were. I mean, I just know there's mooring balls, and I've seen people anchored
Well,
out.
this
They've been
is-
pretty far out, so yeah, that
yeah,
can be too deep. Okay, I hadn't looked at the chart itself. Okay, I just wondered. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, at low tide, it's a pretty big beach.
yeah,
That site would actually be better feasibility kind of a place for a launch ramp
yeah.
area,
But how do you?
because you've got a more gradual sloping,
Mhm.
more gradual sloping and stuff like that.
But you have no pull in, pull out area or
Hmm.
parking or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so pedestrian safety. Um, I'm not sure if we want to poke a hornet's nest and say, hey, we hear that North Nugent's going to be rerouted. We pretend like we don't know anything about that, and we just say that we would recommend the county, as apparently has been recommended in the past, that the county consider putting sidewalks in. But-
Yeah, I do know that there was a petition made by the school to the county and to PTO, and it was probably around 2008, 2009. Well, because at that time, a lot of the kids after school, that was when at the Beach Store Cafe, they had the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah.
And a lot of the kids went to Boys and Girls Club after school. And we also lost the school bus, the funding for the school bus at that time.
Oh.
So the kids had to start walking from school to the library and the Boys and Girls Club. And that was and I don't know exactly what year it was, but it was back in those days. It may have been 2010, but it was.
Okay. I knew I had I knew I had come across it someplace. I think it might have been an old tome or something because
Yeah,
they were
that's where
talking
I'd have
about,
to,
yeah, they got it as far as like maybe the post office, but didn't want to continue it on. And it was like, well, the point
Mhm.
of the school is, hello. I mean, it's obviously, I'm a pedestrian. I run there all the time. I ran there today and did not get run over. So each and every day I have not
Mhm.
gotten run over there, but it's not because I have necessarily, I am cautious as all get out.
Yeah, and if you look at the roads on the island, there are roads on the island all over that are having erosion issues.
Oh, yeah.
And what the whole huge thing with those erosion issues a lot of times is that solution will require routing a road over private property.
Yes.
I think that's, you know, and I think that's, you know, where it's going to run into the same thing of beach of of North Nugent. It's the same thing that's on West Shore.
There, yep. I'm looking at it.
That's right out in front of you. And it's the same thing that's happening at Village Point. And the issue is the county does not want to, and I understand they're not really real excited about condemning somebody's private property for public access. That leaves people's a bad taste in people's mouths, and you have to respect people's private property.
Okay.
So I don't know, you know, it may have a plan to reroute, like as far as I've heard, the rumors that I've heard is that that when the road is taken away at Village Point, the county's just not going to deal with it. They'll cut off Lego Bay, you know, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh God.
But you know, again, I run there all the time and I stare at it and,
Mhm.
and I just say the day the ocean wins, and it's
Mhm.
not, I hate to say, not going to be, I don't think,
It'll be
not gonna be
within the
20
next
years.
10 years.
Far sooner than
10
20
years.
years. Um, then there'll be a road from Lego Bay up here, and there'll be a road from Lego Bay up there, and there won't be a connecting piece.
Mhm. Yeah, it'll be like it was last summer with the pothole.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so, and I have to say, like I said, you know, living right here and staring down West Shore at those, I mean, you can only call it an avalanche.
Mhm.
That's some incredibly serious. I mean, erosion is not erosion. There are avalanches going on over here. So, yeah, yeah, and I think that's also part of why I struggle a little bit with the dock because I'm sure there are people who are like, you know, if we're going to spend money on something, we should spend it on, you know, fixing
Mhm.
the road. But part of me is like, well, I hate to tell you, I think the dock has a lot better longevity um, to outlook than some of these roads do.
Yeah.
But it's been a long time. I see reference to some of these back in the journals from Peggy Aston back in the 30s and 40s.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. But there's I don't know. Do you guys think we should just this meeting hasn't, it's been productive, but it hasn't been super productive. Do we want to publish this recording? I don't know. I don't know.
the um
Hi,
the
YouTube.
Yeah, I don't know
okay.
about this.
Yeah, one reason I think it's a good idea. I think there are times and it's kind of what I said after last week when we went back to the mooring ball discussion, which we've had before. But
Mhm.
some time has passed, and people's thoughts, we've made some other decisions, and as we, kind of make decisions, it frees up some of your brain power for thinking,
Mhm.
revisiting. And so I think
Mhm.
tonight, as part of this, has been kind of the revisiting in a sense. And I think
Mhm. It's part of the process.
it's part of the process. And I
Mhm.
think that aspect of the sort of respect for the community to say, you know, every meeting doesn't, you don't have an agenda and stick to the agenda and go through, churn through the agenda.
Mhm.
Not only that, my friends, how many other committees meet every single week?
Probably none.
No, it's us.
Yeah.
So some of them are definitely going to have to be the brainstormy type where you just tried. I mean, admittedly, if we were not in person, I mean, if we were in person and I was
Mhm.
making, minute notes, there'd have been this chunk of time I probably wouldn't have written anything down.
Mhm.
Nobody'd be any much the wiser, but I think a Zoom, I think it's fun.
It keeps us, I guess it keeps us up front.
Yeah.
No one can say we're not transparent.
Nobody can say we're not, and nobody can say we don't have doubts, and nobody can say we're not very we're honest about expressing those doubts. But I think that I think we come, certainly my takeaway from tonight is think more about the community resilience, and let's see if we
Mhm.
can puzzle around some other ways to make that something that will be probably in the end more of our legacy that if this dock never gets built.
Yeah.
There are some other processes I think that we'll, successfully move forward with and engage, have more discussion about and reel in some more people to take on the mission
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
time.
No, because I really don't want people to think that I don't support the public dock, because I do.
Oh yeah, but I feel
I just think
exactly the same
I
way.
think it's really important to like just think about a lot of stuff though.
So there's a lot of
So
stuff.
Incredibly
okay.
important. That's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
Okay, so we'll submit it to YouTube. Okay.
Okay, thanks,
Yeah.
guys. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. And thanks for coming this week, and we'll talk next week, and I'm turning the recording off if I can
All
find
right.
the off button. Yeah. Okay.
Take
Good
care.
night.